Hey everyone, in this video we are going to build a Web3 app which allows people to sign in with their wallets, like their MetaMask wallet for example, and then to join a Stripe subscription. This is really cool because we're using the ThirdWeb Auth package, which allows us to verify that a user owns a wallet by asking them to sign a message. This enables us to effectively allow sign in with Ethereum, which is one of the biggest goals or dreams, or one of the most interesting use cases for the Ethereum and broader crypto and Web3 ecosystem. It's a really cool little project and I can't wait to get started. We're going to do it using a Next.js project, and we will build the auth components of it first, and then we will integrate with Stripe. It's really straightforward and it's going to be a super fun project. Currently, 71.4% of people who watch our Web3 videos have not subscribed to the channel. So if you've taken away any value from what we're doing, can I ask just one small favor? Hit that subscribe button and join the 29%. Each week we are going to be airdropping a very special and rare ThirdWeb NFT to 10 subscribers. Let's take a look at an example of what this project can look like. I'm here in Google Chrome, and as you can see, this is a very basic, doesn't look beautiful at all version of this project. But what it does allow is for me to connect with my wallet. So I'm going to select a MetaMask wallet. And now you can see that I'm connected with this wallet address, which is great. And now I can sign in. So I can also disconnect if I wanted to, right? But I'm going to connect again. And now I can sign in with my wallet. So I'm going to have to sign this message, and I'm going to click sign. And now I have signed in with my wallet. And you can see that I'm on the Mumbai testnet. I can copy my address, switch accounts, disconnect, etc. This is the connected address. This is the address that I've logged in with, which is the same as my connected address. I can log out over here, or I can authenticate, which means that I'm going to try and access a message which is only accessible if I have correctly signed in. So I'm going to click on authenticate, and you can see I'm signed in with the wallet address. And then finally, I can now subscribe to a Stripe subscription, and I can also check my subscription. So let's start by subscribing. I'm going to click on the subscribe button, and it should redirect me to the Stripe checkout. And you can see that I'm trying to check out here. I can click on subscribe, and this is payment information that I had already put in there. And now that I have subscribed, it redirects me back to my little web app over here, my Web3 app, and I can click on check subscription, and it loads my subscription user, and this is my user ID, which is again my wallet ID, has a subscription, and this is my subscription ID. This is a really cool, very basic app, and this is what we're going to be building in this project. So to get started, the first thing that we're going to do is head over to VS Code or whichever IDE you want to build this in. We can use one of the ThirdWeb Next.js templates, and the way that we do that is we go npx, this is the ThirdWeb CLI, so npx ThirdWeb latest create, and we hit enter, and we are going to let it run a little bit. We're going to proceed, and we're going to give it a second to install the packages. This little CLI tool is really cool for creating, and really useful really for creating projects. So it allows you to pick if you want to create an app, like by using Next.js or a similar framework, or if you want to create a contract. And then if you want to create a smart contract, you can select from one of ThirdWeb's templates, or you can create a blank contract, which will just allow you to go wild and build whatever you want there. So we're going to wait for this to finish installing all of these things, but effectively what we are going to do is, once this has finished installing, we're going to install the ThirdWeb Auth package, and then we're going to set up the auth. We will need a config file for the ThirdWeb Auth, and then we will be able to set up a catch-all handler for any ThirdWeb Auth related API calls, and then we're going to set up the actual validate, the login, and set up all the various functionality related to that, and then we will move on to Stripe. So let's just proceed here with the creation of the project. We are creating an app, not a contract. Let's call this auth-stripe. Hit enter. We want to use Next.js. We want to use TypeScript. And now we're going to let it do its thing. And sorry, just to continue, what we're going to be doing is, once we've set up all the auth components, including the buttons for logging in and logging out, etc., what we're going to do is we're going to have to set up a Stripe account. We're going to create a product in Stripe, and then we are going to be able to actually create that subscription from our Web3 app, from our Next.js project. Once this is done, we're going to also have to install the third web auth package. But what's really important to note is that this is if you are starting out this project by yourself from scratch. If you want to integrate this sign-in into an existing project, then what you would have to do is install the third web SDKs. And I'll show you exactly in the package.json what I'm talking about, but it is these two SDKs, the third web React SDK and the third web SDK. The React one is for front end, SDK is for back end. And so if you are starting out by yourself or from scratch, then you can use the third web CLI tool to create a new project. But if you are integrating into an existing project, then you need some of these dependencies to make this all work. So now that this is done, let's just open it up in a slightly easier way. And so now we can actually take a look at this little project that we have. Let's start by just getting it running locally. So to do that, we're going to do npm run dev, and it will open up. Let's drag it across from the second screen, but it opens up to just the default home page, and you can see that in the index.tsx it will be this home page, which is welcome to third web with the connect wallet button, and for our purposes we don't really need any of this, so I'm going to just delete everything in here, and we don't need to have anything from there now. I'm going to open up a second terminal because we're going to need to install a few other dependencies, and then we are ready to start building. So now you can see we've got a blank home page, and we are ready to get going. Again, if you're doing this, if you're integrating this into an existing project, then what you really need to do is just install some of these dependencies, and then you are ready to go. So we can start by installing the third web auth package. So we can do yarn add at thirdweb-dev/auth. We can hit enter, and we can wait for that to finish installing. And while that's installing, let's create a new file. This is going to be the auth config file. And at the root of the project, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it auth.config.ts. And inside here, we're going to need to import from the third web auth. So we're going to say import, and this is going to come from the third web auth package, and it is coming from the next folder. And what we are importing is called third web auth, as I'm sure you could have imagined. And with that, then we can export two things. This folder effectively is going to be the way that we are going to handle all of the login and the log out and all the other functions that are related to the auth. So from here, we can export two variables. The one is the let's call it the third web auth handler, and the other one is going to be the get user. And these two functions, as I said, are going to we're going to use them for handling all of the auth related functionality. So we're going to need to pass into here a few things. We need to pass into here our private key, which we'll deal with in a second. And then we're going to have to also pass into here a domain. This is the domain that we are asking the user to sign a message from. So just to scroll back to our working example. So we've got two running versions of this locally. The working example, the completed project, if I log out, and I click on sign in again, we'll see the message pop up again, and you can see over here that example.org, this is the website that is requesting the signature. So when I click sign, that will obviously sign me in again, but that is set over here in the domain that we are setting in this auth.config. And so that's really important. You want there to be transparency there. You want to be able to tell your user some useful information there, and you want it to be recognizable for your users. So now that we've got that, we have to sort out our private key. So we're going to get our private key, a local env file, a local environment variable file. As you definitely know, a private key is incredibly sensitive, and so it's really important to handle your private key with the utmost security and caution, because if someone gets hold of your private key, they will have complete control of your wallet and whatever assets you have inside your wallet, and you really don't want everything to get stolen. And so you really want to make sure that your private key is handled with caution and with sensitivity and security. For the purposes of simplicity and brevity in this video, we are going to store all of our private keys and other environment variables that we will need in a .env.local file, but that is not the right way to do it. The best way to do it is to use a secret manager. So if you want to know how to do it using a secret manager, you can check out one of our guides on using a secret manager to handle your private key. But for our purposes, again, for simplicity, we're simply going to say process.env.admin private key. We need to do as string because we're working in TypeScript here. And over here, I'm going to just pause the recording of my screen so that we can just copy in the private keys and everything that we need. So I'm going to create a new file, and that is going to be .env.local and paste it in there, and then close that file. And now I can resume my screen recording. So as you can see, I've now created this .env.local file, which has got all of the necessary environment variables that I'll need for this project, and including my private key for a wallet. Now that we've set up the config for the auth, we can go ahead and set up the actual handler. So to do that, we go to our pages folder. We can create a new folder called API, and inside that folder, we're going to create a catch-all handler. So we're going to call it open square brackets ... third web, close that .ts, and we're going to hit enter. And once we've got that, then what we can do is we can import the third web auth handler from the auth config file, and we can export from this file the auth handler, and we want this to be a function. This, as I mentioned before, basically handles all of the basic auth functionality, log in, log out, etc., etc. And so with that, we are ready to actually get building the auth components. The first implementation that we have to do in the components is in our app.tsx. So if you are integrating this into an existing project, then also notice here that we're using the third web provider. The third web provider gives us all the context to use all of the third web magic, and so it's another really important piece. So once you've installed the necessary dependencies, you also have to use the third web provider. To use the third web auth package, we have to add another attribute in here, and that is going to be the auth config. So we're going to add that in there, and we're going to set that equal to a few different things that we have to pass in here. So we have to pass in an auth URL, and so we are going to pass in the location of where we've got our handler /third web auth, and then we're going to also pass into here a domain, and this is again going to be our example.org. Then we're going to have to pass in here a login redirect, and this is simply going to be the home page. Then we are set up in this with the third web provider so that it knows to use the auth and the auth config, and we are ready to move on to the next step. We're going to go to index.tsx, and in here we're going to start just by adding in a simple heading so that we can divide up our page nicely. So we're going to make an h2 heading, and we're going to call this the wallet connection section of our page. And this is like connecting your wallet to the front end of an application. And inside here, we're going to add the wallet connect button. So if you noticed on the working version of the app, there's this really nice button that's got all this additional functionality. This is the third web wallet connect button, and it's really, really cool because it comes out of the box ready to use all of the necessary functionality. So to do that, let's add a new div, and inside there we're going to add the connect wallet component, which is imported from thirdweb-dev/react. And just because it will look a little bit better, let's add a style attribute and set the width equal to 250 px, and then we've got the wallet connect button. So let's take a look at the version that we're working on. You can see our heading, you can see our connect wallet button, so it's coming along quite nicely. We can then add a line break, and after that we want to check if the user is signed in. We want to offer a disconnect button as well. So what we can do is we can use a ternary operator. We can say if there is an address, which we'll get in a second, if there is an address, then we want to show a button which says disconnect wallet. And inside here, we want to say when there is a click on this button, then we want to set it equal to disconnect. And we'll get this this disconnect function in a second. If there isn't an address, then we don't want to display the disconnect button. We only want to display it if there is an address. And so we can just return null over there. And now we want to add one more line before we get our address and our disconnect function. And that is going to be just a small piece of text that's going to display the connected address. So connected address is going to be equal to either the address, if it is there, right, or it is going to be equal to NA, and close our curly brackets. Then we need to use a few hooks from third web in order to get our address and our disconnect function. So from the thirdweb-dev/react, we're going to import the use address hook and the use disconnect hook. And then at the top over here, we can say const address is equal to the use address hook, and const disconnect is equal to the use disconnect hook. Great. And now we can test this out. So let's go back to our page that we've been working on. You can see we've got the connected address is currently equal to NA because we haven't connected anything. We can click on connect wallet. I'm going to select MetaMask wallet, and it is all automatically connected. And you can see that this is a different wallet address because there's clearly a different wallet that is open in here, or that was connected here previously. So we can choose to connect to the other wallet, and I'm going to close this MetaMask stuff. And so you can see now the wallet address is this wallet address, and it is connected. And because we are using the third web auth in this project, and we've set it up in the provider and we've installed the package, the wallet connect button from third web automatically allows us to also sign in. So that is a really cool piece of functionality. We don't have to worry about creating a separate sign in button. It's just built into the wallet connect button from third web. So we're not going to deal with that right now because we're going to build a little bit more functionality into our app so that we can handle the sign in correctly. Once we're ready to do it, then it will be really simple to just click there and sign the message and be signed into our Web3 application. So the next step from here that we are going to do is we're going to add the login and the authenticate functionality so that we can see a message that is only accessible if you are authenticated, i.e. if you are signed in. And so in order to do that, let's just start by adding a little bit more to our front end. So we're going to create another heading just so that we have got the page broken up nicely. And now we're going to call this part of it the authentication. And this is more like a back-end authentication. So in here, we're going to check for a few things. We're going to say, firstly, if there is an address, then we want to check if there is a user, i.e. if a person is logged in or if the user is logged in. Right, so to do that, we're going to use another ternary operator. So we're going to say if there is a user, then right, we want to offer them the option to log out. So we can display a button that says log out, and to add the on-click functionality here, when a person clicks on it, we want to log out. And again, we'll get the user, the logout, etc., in a second. But if there isn't a user, right, so if someone isn't signed in, then null, we don't need to display the logout button, and we don't need to worry about that. And then also, we want to say that if the user is signed in, if there is an address, then we want to offer them the option to authenticate. And so we're going to display another button over here. And inside here, we're going to say authentication message. Maybe it should be view authentication message. But let's just call it authentication message. When clicked on, it needs to call a new function, which we haven't written yet, but we will in a minute, is the authenticated request. And again, we haven't written this function yet, but we will in a minute. Once we've got that, we want to just display the relevant information to the user. So we need two pieces of text. The first is the logged in address. And here we're going to check if there is a user, right? Because if there's a user, it means that they're logged in. And if there isn't, if there is a user, i.e. if they are logged in, then we want to display the user.address. But if there isn't a user, if they are not logged in, then we want to display NA, and we can close our curly brackets. And then finally, the last piece of information that we want to display is the authentication message, the message that is only accessible if you are signed in, if you have been authenticated. And this is going to be a state variable that is going to be the auth message, which we will set it up in a second. Okay, so now that we've got our basic components there that are ready to be rendered, let's just give ourselves all the pieces that we need to make this work. So the first thing that we need is the user. So we're going to go up here and we're going to create a new variable. We're going to say const user, and this is deconstructed from the use user hook, which we have to import also from third web. So use user. And the second thing that we need is we need the logout. So again, we're going to import from third web, use logout. Well, use, let's try that again, log. Why is that not? Oh, there we go, log out. And then we can say a new variable for that. Const logout is going to be equal to the use logout. And then we also need to use some state, right? So we got the state variable that's going to be the auth message variable. We need to import from React the use state hook. And we can now create a state variable, and we're going to say const auth message, and set auth message is going to be equal to use state, and we're going to default it to NA. So it will display NA if there is no, or if the auth message hasn't been changed. And the final thing that we need is the authenticated request function. So this is going to be a function that we write here at the top. Oh, not that. And then we can say, so const authenticated request is going to be equal to an asynchronous function. Inside this function, we're going to call an API route, which is going to validate our user. So we're going to say, we're going to use a try catch, and inside the try, we're going to say const response is going to be await, and then we're going to fetch, and we need to pass into here the route that we are taking, which is going to be API / validate, which again, we haven't written this part of it yet, but we will in a minute. And the method that we are using is a post. And once we've got the response, then we can get the data. So const data is going to be equal to await response.json. And then we can set the auth message to this data.message, which is going to be where we send the message in. And of course, we have to add in our catch. So we're going to catch any errors there, and we're going to console.error out these any errors that may come up. So before we test it out, the validate endpoint, and then we'll be able to test it out. We have an error down here because we are using a ternary operator to check for the address, but then we're not providing it with something to do if there isn't an address. So let's just add that in here. If there isn't an address, then let's display a message that says connect your wallet to access the authentication. Okay, great. So now that we've got that out of the way, we can go back up here to our API folder, and inside here we can create a new route, validate.ts. Inside the validate.ts file, we're going to create the handler to handle the validation. So we need to import a few types so that we've got the correct types for TypeScript, API response, also from Next, and then we also need to import the get user function from the auth config file. So this is going to be from the, we might have to go one more level up, yeah, there we go, and that is going to be from auth.config. And then we can actually start with the handler. So const handler is going to be equal to async, and then we can write the function. So we're going to say that if the if the method is not equal to post, then we want to throw an error. We want to say res.status is going to be a 405, and we can display just a JSON response, which is going to be an error with method not allowed. Okay, and we can return that response. We've now gotten rid of the possibility of it not being a post, right? Because if it's not a post request, then we're going to return the error response. So we can proceed with the rest of the functionality. So we're going to say const user is going to be equal to await get user, and we're going to pass into here the rec.body, and then we can close that bracket. Actually, sorry, we don't even need to pass in the body. We can just pass into the request. And once we've got that, we need to check if there actually is a user that is returned. So this is checking if the user is authenticated. So we want to say if there is a user.address, then we want to return the res.status will be 200, and then we want to return a message which says that you are signed in as user.address. Oh, and let's also deal with if there isn't a user, right? So if a user is returned from the get user function, then we will have an address, and we will return you are signed in as the user.address. However, if there isn't a user.address, then we want to return just a message that says unauthorized. So we want to return a res.status, and we can put a 401 error, and the message can be, or the error really can be, that they are unauthorized. And then we really are ready to go. This handler is wrapped up. We just need to export it, and then we can test this all out. Great. So to test this all out, we are going to go back to our front end that we've been building out. You can see that we have connected our wallet. We've got a connected address. We can disconnect our wallet, and we can sign in. So to sign in, we're going to click on the button. It opens up this message from MetaMask. We can click sign, and then we get an error. So to fix our error, we have to fix the route for authentication. And to do that, we go to our app.tsx, and this is my mistake, which we have to correct over here. We have to take out this part of it, because we're only really going into the API folder to get to our third web catch-all handler. And then once we've done that, we can go back to our front end, and we can try to authenticate again. So you can see the sign in button is here. I'm going to click on sign in. It asks me to sign the message, which I click sign, and then it says logged in. Great. So now it's working. Logged in address is that. I can try to view the authentication message, which I can. Signed in as, and gives me the wallet address. And so this means that our authentication is working. We have connected our wallet. We have clicked on login, or sign in, which is confirmed by this. We've logged in with the address, and we've been able to access the message, which is only accessible if you have signed in. So with the login working correctly, let's just take a quick look at what we've done, and then we'll move on to the next section, which is the Stripe integration. So we started in the app.tsx. Actually, we started with the auth config file, which we had to set up there. We added our environment variables. We set up the necessary attributes in the third web provider for the auth config, and then we built out we just added the handler to handle all the third web authentication, and then we added our front end components to be rendered. We added the ability to connect your wallet and to disconnect the wallet, and then we added the ability to authenticate or to log in and to access a secret message if you have actually logged in. And then of course we also had to build out the API route, the handler, to handle that sign in and that login to return the user. And so now that our authentication is working correctly, we have to move on to the Stripe integration. The first thing that you have to do is make sure that you have a Stripe account. So you can go to stripe.com, you can just Google Stripe, and you have to create an account. And once you've created an account and logged in, then you can get the relevant pieces of information that we need. We need a few things. We need the publishable key, which you can find in the Home tab, and then you need the secret key, which I'm not going to reveal here, but you need the secret key. You need to copy both of those and put them into your environment variables file in the project. And once you've done that, then head over to the Products tab. You can add a new product, and then you can give it a name, you can give it an amount, make it recurring, monthly, etc., etc. And once you have created the product, and then obviously save the product, but once you have created the product, then come back to the products page, click on the product, and scroll down to the pricing, and find the pricing ID. And then you can click on copy, and again copy that into your environment variables folder. And once that is all in place, then we can head back over to our code and we can start the actual integration with the code. What we are going to do is we're going to have two handlers for Stripe. We're going to have a checkout and we are going to have a subscription. To do that, we can go back to our API folder, and inside it we can create a new folder called Stripe. And inside that folder, let's create a checkout.ts. And here we're going to need to have a very similar layout in certain ways to what we've had before. So we need to import the various types, and this is going to be the next API request and the next API response. And then once I've clearly spelled that wrong. No, why is that opening GitHub Copilot? Next API response. Okay, the spelling has been corrected. We also need the get user function from the auth config. And then we also need to import Stripe from Stripe. So we have to import Stripe from Stripe, and this is a good opportunity to go yarn add Stripe. Oh, I definitely spelled that wrong. Let's try that again. Yarn add Stripe. Now we can do that. Okay, now this should work. And there we go. We're now ready to actually build the handler. So let's say const checkout is going to equal async. The request is going to be the next API request, the response, and then we can first thing that we can do is, as we've done before, if it is a post request, if it is not a post request, we want to return an error. But then if it is a post request, we can continue with what we want. We want to get the user. So const user is going to equal await get user, and we're going to pass in the request there. And then we're going to get the various environment variables that we need. So const, and we're going to deconstruct them. Stripe secret key we're going to need, and we're going to need the next public auth domain. Okay, and we're going to need, and this can be saved as the domain, and we're also going to need the Stripe price ID, and this is all coming from the process.environment variables. So just to explain quickly what these are, the Stripe secret key is what you copied from the Stripe homepage. This is the secret key that you got from there. The next public auth domain is you need to create a new environment variable in your .env.local file, and it should look and it needs to be a URL. This is like the URL that is going to be redirected to. After the payment is completed, they will be redirected back to this page. So you can make it HTTPS whatever you want it to be. Right, so for me, I'm using my local host URL, and so that will work for the domain. And then the Stripe price ID is what you got from the product page when you went into the product and got it from the price over there. And again, all of these need to be saved in your .env.local file. And so once we've got those, we need to do just a very quick check to make sure that they are there. All right. So if there isn't any of these environment variables, then we want to throw an error. And then we can proceed to also just check that if there isn't a user, then we also want to throw an error, but this is going to be an unauthorized error, because if there isn't a user, it means that they haven't been authenticated. And now that we've got an authenticated user, then we can say that we want to instantiate an instance of the Stripe SDK, which is const Stripe is equal new Stripe, and we need to pass in the secret key, and then we also need to have the version, the API version over there, and this API version has to be very specific, and so it needs to be 2022-08-01, and then we should be able to go on to the next step. So once we've got that, why is it still giving me an error there? 20, oh, here we go, because I've got a small typo there. There we go. Okay, so once we've got Stripe, then we can actually start to find the customer, right? Because again, this checkout, what we're going to do is we're going to see if there is a customer that has already created an account in Stripe, and if there is, then great, they can, then like we want to use that customer, and if there isn't, then we want to create a new customer. So to do that, we're going to say const customers, because this is where we're going to save our customers, and we're going to say await stripe.customers.search, and we're going to pass into here a query, and the query is going to look like this. It is going to be metadata, and open up square brackets, we want to be searching on the wallet address, and then we want to be searching for the user.address. And just notice how this query is formatted. It has to be very particular to search correctly in Stripe. And then once we've got that, we need to find the customer. So let customer, and then we're going to say if the customers.data.length is more than 0, then we want to set the customer being equal to the first customer in that array. But if there isn't, then we want to create a customer. So then we want to say customer is going to be equal to await stripe.customers.create, and then we want to pass in the metadata to create this customer, and we want to pass in the wallet address being equal to the user address. And now that we've got our customer, we can create a session for them to actually pay. So we're going to say const session is going to be equal to await stripe.checkout.sessions.create, and then into here we need to pass the metadata to create a session. So we need to have the customer, and that needs to be equal to what we have set before, the customer.id. We need to also pass in the success URL, which is going to be the domain that we got above from our environment variables. We need to set in the line items. These are the items that the customer is buying, and so for this we need to say price, and we need to pass into here the Stripe price ID, which is the price ID again from our environment variables, which we got from the Stripe dashboard, and we want to pass in a quantity of 1, and then we need to pass in a cancel URL, which again is a kind of a redirect, and then the mode is going to be a subscription. Great, and now that we've got that, we can return our session from this handler. So res.status is going to be a 200 response, and we want to return a JSON response with the session. And now that we've got that, we can simply export the checkout handler, and export default is going to be checkout, and then we are ready to go with that handler. So this is all in place here to create the subscription, and let's go set up the front end for this. So in order to set up the front end, we simply going to go back to our index.tsx. We're going to create a new little section in our front end, and so we're going to create another H2 element, and this is going to be the payments, right? And here we are using Stripe. and we are going to have two buttons. Well, let's start with the first button, right? We're going to have one button, which is going to be the subscribe button, and this one is going to call the checkout function. So when it gets clicked on, we want to call the checkout function, which we're going to write in a second, and then we will deal with the second button and the pieces of information that we want to display. So the checkout function is going to be another function up here, and we can say const checkout is equal to async, and just the skeleton for a function, and here we want to say const response is going to be equal to await fetch, and then we're going to go to the API route into Stripe to access the checkout /Stripe /checkout, and it is going to be a post request. The session, right, which is what we returned from our post request, is going to so const session is we're going to get that from await response.json. And now we're going to redirect the user to the Stripe page to process the payment. So in order to do that, we have to use our publishable key from Stripe. So const, and this we have to get again from our environment variables. So const publishable key is going to be equal to the next Stripe publishable key. And again, this is the key that we got from the home tab in the Stripe dashboard. It's this publishable key here, and it is saved in our environment variables. And once we've got that, we need to do a quick check to make sure that there actually is a publishable key. And if there isn't, then we want to throw an error. And once we've got that, then we can actually use the Stripe front-end SDK, which you have to also install. So let's do that now. We're going to go yarn add, and this is at Stripe /Stripe-JS. And while that's installing, we can just do the import at the top. So we are importing the load Stripe from at stripe.js. Okay, and once we've got that, we can set it up in our function. So let's say const stripe is equal to await load stripe.js, and we have to also pass into here. Well, firstly, let's make this as string, and then we also have to pass into here the API version. And this API version is different to the other one. This is 2020-08-27, and then we are ready to redirect. So we can go await stripe dot redirect to checkout, and then we're going to pass into here the session ID. So we're going to say session ID is equal to session.id. And then we are ready to go. So let's test this out. We're going to head back over to our local host. And you can see now we've got our new section, the payments Stripe. We can hit the subscribe button, but first we need to connect our wallet. So we connect our wallet again, and you can see the wallet address. You can see that I'm already logged in. So let's just check. I can access the secret message, the authentication message, and let's click on the subscribe button. It should redirect us in a second to the Stripe checkout page, and it has not. So let's just see where that is going wrong. Hang on. Okay, it looks like there is an error in the way that we are formatting the query. So let's go back to our query over there, and let's check where we are. Let's check where we are going wrong. So checkout query, here we go. So the metadata, it should be metadata and open square brackets, wallet address. We need to close the inverted commas there, and then we should be good to go. So I'm going to save that again. Let's try that again. We're going to hit subscribe, and now it should redirect us. There we go. It redirects us to the Stripe checkout, and this is an account that I've already set up. So if you're doing this for the first time, you need to input card information, and the card information that you can use is if you want, you can go to you can just Google Stripe test cards, and it will give you the relevant information. But it basically needs to be the card number that's like 4242, etc., all the 42s. You can use any forward date for the expiry date and any 3 digits for the CVV. And so we're going to keep using that card. We can click on subscribe. It processes the payment, and then it should take us back to our local host. Okay, well, this takes us back to the localhost 3000. So that is an error in my environment variables, which I will correct. Let's just pause my video again. So I'm going to pause my screen recording. I need to just correct my localhost. So it needs to take me to localhost 3001, and then I can resume my recording. And so let's try that again. So I'm going to go back to localhost 3001, because remember, the localhost 3000 is where we were running our already completed project, and localhost 3001 is where we're running the one that we are currently working on. So we are logged in over here. I can click on subscribe again, and it should take me back to Stripe. I'm going to click on subscribe over here, and it's processing the payment, and now it takes me back to localhost 3001, which is great. This is where I want to be, and we are ready to go into the final step of this project, which is to allow a user to check out their subscription. So in order to do that, we have to have one more endpoint in the Stripe folder. We're going to make a new file, and we're going to call this subscription.ts, and the format over here is going to be very similar to what we've had in the past. We are going to, in fact, we can even copy a decent amount of it. We're going to need to get all of these pieces of information again. We're going to have to instantiate Stripe again. We are going to so we're going to copy all of that across. Sorry, let's do that again. We're going to copy all of that across into here, and we're going to close our function so that it kind of just makes sense. And we're going to rename this to subscription. Actually, we do not need the Stripe price ID, so we can remove that. But then other than that, we are ready to go. We can continue. So again, here all we did was just made sure it's a post request. We got our user, we've got our environment variables, and we've performed some quick checks to make sure we've got everything in place. And after instantiating an instance of the Stripe SDK, we can proceed to actually getting the information on a user's subscription. So in order to do that, we're going to again do this query. So we're going to say const customers is going to be equal to await stripe.customers.search, and into here we are going to pass again this query, which is going to be the same as what we've done in the past, which is metadata, wallet address. Make sure to close our inverted commas this time, and we're passing into here again the user address. And then we're going to say that if there are no customers, right, so if the customers.data.length, right, there are no customers is equal to 0, then we're going to return an error that no customers were found. However, if there are customers, then we're going to set a variable called customer to customers.data, and we're going to get the first item in that array. And then we can get the subscription for that customer. So we're going to say all the subscriptions for that customer. So we can say const subscriptions is equal to await stripe.subscriptions.list. And into here, we need to pass the customer ID to get the customer's subscriptions. So we pass customer and make that equal to customer.id, which we got above. Remember, that comes from there. And finally, to get the to make sure that there actually are subscriptions, we can just do a quick check, and we can say if the subscriptions.data.length is equal to 0, then we want to return an error again and say that there were no subscriptions found. However, if this passes, right, if there are actually subscriptions, then we want to return res.status is going to be a 200 response, and we want to return a JSON message with the user's information. So we're going to give the user's ID. So the user, and then we're going to pass in user.address is subscribed, or maybe let's say has a subscription with an ID of, and then we're going to pass in the subscriptions.data, the first item in that array, .id. And so now all that we have to do here is we have to tie this up in the front end so that we can actually display the information, and then we are done. So in this file, or in this handler, we must not forget to export from here. Export default is going to be the subscription, and we can save that. And so in this file here, what we did is we made sure it's a post request, i.e. if it's not a post request, we must throw an error. We got the user, we got our relevant environment variables, we instantiated an instance of Stripe, we fetched the customer using the user's address that we had authenticated, and then we got all the subscriptions for that customer, and we're returning the first subscription in that list of subscriptions. And with that, as I said, let's tie it up in the front end. So all that we're going to do here is we're going to add a second button. And in the second button, we're going to make it a check subscription button. So we're going to say button, and we're going to say check subscription. The on click, right? So when someone clicks on this button, we want them to be able to check their subscription. So that's going to be a function we're going to write in a second. And then finally, we need to display their subscription details. So subscription details is going to be equal to the subscription message, which is going to be a state variable that we will create in a second. So the last two things we need to do is create this function and create this a state variable, and then we are done. So let's go back up to the functions, and we're going to create a new function. Let's call it the check subscription function, and this is going to be an asynchronous function. And into this function, we are going to say const response is going to be equal to await fetch, and into here we are passing the API dot /Stripe /subscription, and then we need to give the method as well, which is going to be a post request, and then the message that we are getting, because remember the message is what we returned from the handler, is going to be await response.json, and then we're going to set the subscription message equal to this message. And again, this is just part of state that we have to define now, and so we're going to say const subscription message is going to be set subscription message, and this is going to be equal to use state, and we're going to default it to NA, and then we're ready to go. So we can go back to our front end over here. You can see we've got a check subscription button now. If I click on that, it should check my subscription, and it tells me that I am subscribed with my subscription ID. So that is the completion of the app. So now what we have built is the ability for a user to log in using their wallet, create a subscription with Stripe, and then to fetch that subscription data. If you have enjoyed this video, if you've learned something, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave us a comment. Tell us something that you particularly enjoyed from the video, or something that maybe you didn't understand, or you want us to clear up or focus on in the next video. And also don't forget to join our Discord. The Third Web Discord is a great place to be. It's full of plenty of builders, and you'll be able to speak to all of the Third Web staff and engineers. Thank you so much for watching. We can't wait for the next video.